If you're a residential real estate agent earning $200,000 a year and you want to grow your passive income, this show's for you. Learn the secrets other agents use and hear from experts in our field in order to guide you along your journey to investing in assets like apartment communities so that you can turn your commissions into cash flow. I'm Randall McLeod. Let's go, baby. All right. Welcome back. I am coming to you live from the Bat Cave in Indiana. I am on vacation, but we're still recording, and I'm in an interesting studio setup. So if you're watching this on YouTube, I have a floating head, and it looks pretty funny. But anyway. So I'm joined today by Roger Knecht. He is the president of Universal Accounting, and they really focus on helping CPAs and bookkeepers really build the businesses the right way. He's also a business coach, and so we talk a lot about strategies that he uses with his clients to build businesses. We cover 5 key topics, and we get into those in depth. And in general, he's got a wealth of knowledge around setting up businesses, structuring businesses, processes and planning. He's got a couple books out. And so all of that is something that we discuss in the show. You're going to get a lot out of it. Stay through to the end. He's got a special giveaway that we can get you at the end of the show. If you're getting value out of the show, please jump on, rate us, give us a 5-star review. It'd be awesome. And give us an actual written review. Helps reach the show tremendously, and we appreciate it. And let's jump in with Roger. Here we go. Hey, Roger. Awesome. Thanks for jumping on today. Excited to have you on the show. Why don't you get started and just kind of tell us, for those who don't know you, what you work on and tell us about your business.
Certainly. Happy to be here. This is an honor. So basically, we are a post-secondary school for accounting professionals. So principally, I'm working with the owners of bookkeeping, accounting, tax businesses. And in that process, basically help them offer what I refer to as the premier accounting services in their area. And I do a lot in that space, training either the owners of the business or their staff. And then coincidentally, I also do business coaching. So I have not just the accounting professionals that are owners of their firms that I work with, but also other industries where I work with the owners of their companies, helping them do basically 5 things, and we can jump into that a little bit later.
I want to know what they are. Tell me what are those 5? Yeah.
You bet. So when offering business coaching services, I found that it's very hard to articulate to the business owner what is it that they're going to get in that experience. What is it that I, as a coach, am going to help them do as they work on their company? So I've basically broken it down over the years into 5 things. The first is engage and manifest. The second is understanding accounting. The third is increasing revenue. The fourth is improving profits. And the fifth is building value. I find that of those, there are 3 that particularly interest the business owner. And as I focus with them on all 5 of those things, we really do kind of pivot the business, build what they're hoping to actually acquire in their company. And in that process, it really liberates them. So those 5 things are key to their success.
What's like a typical business then? That do you have a lane? Do you do Fortune 500? Are you doing mom and pops? Like where are you on the spectrum of who you coach?
Yeah, great question. So obviously, as I said at the beginning, I'm working with particularly owners of accounting, bookkeeping, and tax businesses. But in the business space, I'm working with a lot of tech businesses. I've had clients that are actually in the therapy state where they're actually doing either recovery services for people that are addicted, doing family services where they're doing therapy with either young adults, couples, and so forth. But at the same time, I've got trade businesses where I'm working with the electrician that owns an electrical company and so forth. So it actually varies. Yeah. It's generally, I would say, small businesses, typically between, say, 3 to 10 million at the most.
Okay. And so with the, I guess with the school, let's talk about that first and foremost, and just kind of touch on that. So the accounts that come in and you guys are coaching them up on best practices. Are you kind of using the same model that you do with your business coaching in the school where they're coming in and they're just getting coached? Is it programmatic approach, or is it tailored to that person at where they are in their business at a specific time?
Great question, because what we're trying to do as an accounting school is really educate the accountant what it is that they should be doing for their clients. And so I really feel that as an accounting profession, we struggle to articulate well what those services are that we provide to the business world. And so I'm trying to empower the accounting professional to be more clear as to the services they're offering and then deliver quality services, additional value in that space. So the business coaching that I traditionally do with the business owners is, let's say, capped at a certain level, because when I get with the accounting professional, we go far deeper because we're trying to enhance the skills and empower them to actually have a voice as they interact with their clients to provide more value and really move into that CFO advisory space that I feel that they're more adept for.
Got it. It's like a I don't know. There's a lot of private equity firms going around buying up a bunch of companies, and to me it just seems like a strategy that, like CPAs, if they just had like a here's the playbook, all you got to do is do our playbook. We own the firm, but that's not what you guys are doing. So, but it just sounds like it's like one of those things. Like if you follow this, then you will be successful type deal. So through that coaching and through the work that you do in your coaching program and the school, what would you say real estate professionals, agents, engineers, that sort of thing, could benefit from with your experience and seeing other businesses?
So I'm going to basically break it down to 4, and I'll let you pick where you'd like to go. And I've written books on each of these. And as I share these, I think one will resonate more than another. The first is, as any realtor or business owner gets into business, one of the things they struggle with is cash flow. And so there's one thing that we want to emphasize, and it's how to take a business and go from being in the red to being in the black. And I think a lot of business owners can really relate with that, because they get into business, they love what they're doing, but the cash flow just isn't working. The revenue stream isn't there. And so when it comes to the real estate world, you're obviously acquiring properties and you've got to quickly renovate those, and at the same time get people to occupy them or flip them. All of these things come into play as to cash flow. How are we going to manage that? But the next phase actually becomes, once you're in the black, how do you stay there? And so there's a book called In the Black, where we emphasize 9 principles to make the business profitable. And it's there that we have 9 things that focus on short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals as you're running the company and being the leader, the visionary that you need to be. And in the real estate market, you've got to actually have that mindset. What am I doing today? What do I need to be doing in the next quarter? What am I going to be doing in the next year and beyond? And it's how you actually manage that vision of your business. The next 2, and these are ones that I just published literally just a few weeks ago, and it's becoming very aware of what the accounting model is. One's your strategic accountant. A lot of business owners, realtors involved as well, they really struggle as to what to expect from the accounting relationships that they have with the accounting professionals. What are they paying for as a service, and what should they expect from the accounting profession? And then regarding business coaching, I really do believe that we need to actually recognize there's a lot of value working with a business coach. And I try to articulate that in this book here, Your Profit and Growth Expert. So those are some of the things that I try to tackle as I'm working with business owners, and they're very applicable to the real estate market.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see, you've got red to black, went in the black, how do you stay there? So is there any overlap? Do you do like the EOS and all of that? Is there like an overlap for a business model approach that you are coaching, or is this a standalone, like this is your proprietary sort of business coaching model?
These are really proprietary. These are concepts that I've learned over the years. I've been doing this for over 20 years. And so there's experiences that I've had with business owners and the challenges they face as they're trying to run their business and interact with their accounting professionals. And then likewise, the challenge that the accounting professionals having to deliver quality services. So let me put into some context that I think all your listeners will appreciate. Here you are, you're a business owner, you're paying for accounting services. You've got a love of your product or service that you do for a living. So in the real estate world, you love that business model. But you also know you've got to pay taxes and you've got to keep track of your expenses and you've got to be mindful of the money. Accounting is the language of business. And that's fine. And you know that. But as you interact with the bookkeeper, accountant, tax preparer, there's a whole different vocabulary going on there. There's a whole different language happening. And as you're running your business, you're very adept and very intelligent and very capable. But sometimes it's difficult to keep that same level of confidence in the interactions you're having with that accounting professional. Are you asking the right questions? Are you looking at the right information? Are you leveraging that information to make more informed business decisions? And so often when I work with business owners, they feel like there's a gray area, a void. And what's unfortunate is the accounting professional too often fails to bridge that. I refer to the accounting professional as being a translator, an interpreter of this other language that's accounting for the business owner. The accountant needs to step in, and I really do believe put into layman terms the information that the business is trying to communicate, trying to express in the accounting numbers, but the business owner just doesn't speak that language. And so the accountant needs to step to the plate and be, in my opinion, that interpreter, that translator, so that they can take what's foreign to the business owner and make it understandable and useful.
God, I love that. It's, did you ever watch that movie Office Space? And he's like, I deal with the customers so that the engineers don't have to. And it's like, yeah, it is breaking down the communication. So I really love that personally. So as an agent or broker, what are some of the things that we should expect out of our accountants and our bookkeepers?
Great question, because one of the things that I'd like to do is just articulate the difference between the roles. And I cover this in the book that I have that's called Your Strategic Accountant. It's basically, what is bookkeeping? What is accounting? What's the difference between tax planning versus tax preparation? And if you can just get those four clear in your own mind, whether you're the accounting professional or the business owner, the realtor, I think that will help in the communication. So let me real quickly explain each, and we can go into either of them in detail if you'd like. Yeah. Bookkeeping is merely taking all the transactions that are occurring in the business, organizing them, collecting them, and in a timely manner, producing the reports that are essential for the business owner. And those reports are referred to as the income statement or profit and loss statement and balance sheet. In addition to that, the cash flow statement. Those are three reports, P&L, balance sheet, cash flow statement, that literally the business owner can utilize to make informed decision about their business if they're accurate and provided in a timely manner. And it's the role of the bookkeeper to take all that information, compile it, and give it to the owner in a timely way. The accountant, they need to take now that information that's being produced and now interpret that for the business owner. And that's where they're doing a lot of analysis. We're going to, as the accountant, we're going to take those reports and we're going to compare last month to the previous month. We're going to compare last month to the same month last year. We're going to take this quarter and compare it to last quarter. We're going to do year to date to versus last year to date. And we're going to see what's changing, what's moving, what's going on with the different margins. We're going to look at various line items and we're going to see how they correlate and what information can we derive that we can communicate to the business owner to say, this part of the business model has changed. Your margins here are different. These are things that you need to be sensitive to and watch. There are things changing within your business that you need to be aware of. That is basically the attention that the accountant brings to the accounting numbers, and they're now acting as that interpreter I mentioned. The next is tax planning. Tax planning, this is something that should excite your real estate people simply because there's so much involved in this. A lot of people from a tax planning perspective incorporate into their acquisition of assets and how they're managing those a planning strategy. They're looking at how do they do maybe not only the investment side of their portfolio, but they're looking at, okay, how do I have my trust set up? How am I leveraging this from a tax perspective? Do I have the LLCs? Do I have the irrevocable trust set up? All of these things are these strategies from a planning point of view that really are enticing, especially at the real estate level. And if you can actually articulate that strategy in a certain way and come up with a game plan of what we're going to do moving forward with short-term investment properties, long-term investment properties, we're looking at residential, commercial. I mean, all of these have a variety of elements that can really be part of that strategy that makes up the planning component. But the next is the tax preparation. That's literally now taking those numbers and filing in a timely manner the tax returns so that we're compliant and hopefully paying legally, but no more than necessary legally, the tax that we owe. So all those things the accounting professional can and should be doing. And when a realtor is running their business, they need all four of those perspectives in their business.
Yeah, for sure. So I was going to ask you when like how, to me, that sounds like a lot. I've not had a CPA that's had that many conversations on a monthly basis. Mm-hmm. And perhaps it's because they're not an in-house like CFO and we're having this conversation where it's like an ongoing conversation. But there's a big difference between a tax strategist and just a CPA who's going to file your taxes for you. Mm-hmm. And so if I'm out hunting for a CPA or a strategist, like what advice do you have? And what are some questions that I could start with just to determine very quickly if they are going to fill the role that I need them to fill for my business?
So I'm going to be as clear as I can with this. There are 6 things. It's bookkeeping, accounting, tax planning, tax preparation, CFO, and advisory. I would suggest that whomever you have doing any of those roles, once it's clear which they're performing, you then go find someone else to fill in the additional roles. So it's not uncommon to have somebody do bookkeeping and another person do accounting, and then find one person that does tax planning and preparation, and then find another that actually is a CFO or advisor. You could be working with as many as 3, 4, 5 individuals, but collectively they should be working as a team in your behalf. And it's not uncommon to have a quarterly or semi-annual meeting where you pull each of these individuals to the table. The bookkeeper comes with the reports. The accountant comes with the analysis. The tax preparer actually comes with the tax filings from the previous year, and with the planner has a strategy for the year we're currently in. And then you can bring to the table a CFO and advisor as to what we're doing with cash flow management and the various places that we're going to leverage capital, get capital to move the business forward. All of those individuals should be collaborating in your behalf. And so if you've got one person that's performing the bookkeeping and accounting role, that's just one less person you need at the table, but they're performing both roles. Yeah. And then you bring the tax person that's to the table. Well, now if they're doing planning and preparation, that's 2 individuals at the table, but they're performing 2 distinct and very important roles. You bring a CFO and advisor to the table. Now you got 3 people in the room that actually have your best interests at heart that you're working with as advisors. And then admittedly, you can bring in that business lawyer that you have that may be appropriate to have on there, a financial advisor, a CFP that you could pull to the table. And if you have all those people in the same room and you have a strategy that you can discuss on a quarterly, semi-annual, or annual basis, you're running a business now.
Wow, that's interesting. Because yes, that's okay. So 6 different, and I'm a big fan of every time we have a company that we launch or we do anything, we map out like everybody, where's the seat, who's sitting. So accounting sits in one bucket with a bookkeeper and CPA, but I don't have the other 4 positions outlined. And so that is great advice, just to know somebody's butt needs to be in those seats, right?
Exactly. That is exactly right.
And so you're saying on a quarterly basis, that's your recommendation for CPA or for that team to meet together at least, or semi-annual basis. And I agree with that. We do, quarterly meetings with our strategist and the CPA team. So yeah, that's interesting. So, all right, let's take it to, again, the show is geared towards building cash flow, building our active income as agents and brokers so that we can go out and we can invest that money and earn some passive income. You have a unique perspective because you're coming from it as, 1, an entrepreneur yourself. 2, you get to coach a bunch of different businesses, and you're working with CPAs who obviously get to see all the different types of businesses out there. So in this current market environment, and you may know the answer, or you may have a response to this, maybe you don't, but in the market that we're in currently, do you have any insight into heavily or high cash flow producing businesses that I may not know about, or the listeners may not know about, that would be decent investments if we have ability to put some money to work?
It's a great question. I don't know if I would give necessarily investment advice, but I will share with you that from a conversation I literally just had prior to this call, I was speaking with an individual that offers bookkeeping services specifically for the real estate market. And it's basically realestateaccounting.com. Mark does a phenomenal job in basically servicing this community. And from what I understood in that conversation that I had, there's a huge demand for bookkeeping needs in this marketplace because generically there's something to be said for just good bookkeeping. But when you have a niche focused service that can actually tailor itself to the need of an industry, such as the real estate market, whether it be investors, property management companies, brokers, all of a sudden you've got somebody that can speak the language and do what you're needing to. So perhaps this is a plug for Mark, but the point is from an investment point of view, there is a need for bookkeeping services. And unfortunately, I think it's an underserviced market because there's a lot of capital that's going into this. There's a lot of money moving around, especially as you're renovating properties and investing in them. So if you can actually kind of get all your ducks in a row and in the trifecta, actually try and look at this as a great way of managing your assets and protecting them once you create the trust and so forth, I really feel that you can get a strong business model. So maybe I'm going to end by answering your question. If you could get your listeners to recognize it, for those that have the strengths and the opportunity to go out there and literally focus on offering CFO and accounting related services to this marketplace, I think there's a huge demand for it, because there's a lot of moving and integral parts that are going on. And unfortunately, I think there's a lot of people that are doing it in a vacuum. They just don't have the expert advice that they should to really take their own business to another level.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen that. We cycled through a number of bookkeepers before we got to one that was very, very specific to real estate. And they were awesome. So, man, we were talking about something a second ago. Oh, the CFO side of it. You kept referencing a CFO. Like, what does that even cost to bring on like a third party CFO or like an outsourced CFO? Is that just like sorry, go ahead.
No, it depends. I mean, the cost obviously varies. If you want them in-house, if you're a large enough operation that you can hire someone in-house, that'd be great. You're definitely looking at six figures in there. If you're looking at something that's more fractional, there's what's called fractional CFO or part-time CFO services out there that you can get at a deal. I mean, there's really quite affordable services out there that can have somebody come in, assess what's going on in the business, and give you advice on a quarterly basis, as I mentioned. The best advice I can give you is understanding yourself what you are expecting from a CFO. I think too often someone will pitch CFO related services and someone will pay for those services and not get what's needed in the business. So let me just answer what you should be expecting from that role. The first thing is cash flow management. In the business, you've got obviously investors, you've got cash flow. You need to actually be putting into place, with the help of the CFO, policies and procedures to ensure that there is a positive cash flow, so that we're actually managing basically the money coming in before it's going out. We don't want to be in a position where we're functioning as a bank and funding a lot of things and losing money. We want to actually be in a position where we're cash positive. And so that's one of the things that I really want to emphasize, is that the CFO role is to come up with the business model, the policies and procedures to ensure that the business is cash positive. The second thing is the relationship with all the lending institutions. That CFO should be working with the banking, the VCs, whomever it is that's providing the capital, to ensure that that relationship is communicating well, that everyone understands what's going on, so that everyone's happy. The numbers that are being provided are accurate, so that they are making intelligent, informed decisions. So that's really important. And then the last thing is, at that level of CFO, they need to be providing direction to the leadership team, whether it be just the president or whomever else, so that they can actually, again, as I was describing, take the information and articulate it in a way that the business team understands what's going on in the business. The forecasting, the budgeting. Here's what we're going to need in the future. If we're looking at these types of decisions, here's what we need to have in place before we move forward. That type of clarity isn't going to come from a bookkeeper capacity or an accountant capacity. That's a CFO role.
Okay. Yeah, it's more strategic, certainly, in the business, helping you grow it.
We're proud to be sponsored by Ridgeline Investment Group. Ridgeline has a track record of transacting more than $53 million in assets throughout Texas. Ridgeline is currently looking to acquire 100 to 200 unit Class B multifamily communities between 5 and 20 million in San Antonio, Temple, Waco, Tyler, and other Texas secondary markets. To learn more about Ridgeline Investment Group, visit www.ridgelineig.com.
So right now, or not right now, everybody's business is different, but I imagine a lot of owners are in that role themselves. Because they're handling all of those tasks and duties, whereas they don't need to. They could actually outsource that. So. And they may not be doing it as well as a CFO or outsourced fractional CFO could do it. Okay, so I'm curious. I want to talk more, I guess, on the business coaching and just business building side of things, because that's I don't know. I'm sitting here. I mean, you're branding. You're writing books. You got 4 books out at least that I just saw. So like when you're going out and coaching. Say electricians or realtors or whoever it is, what sort of deals are you having them work on? You know, because for me, when you're presenting your books and you're writing books, right, that's a huge credibility boost, right? Just business basics 101, right? You're writing these books. You want to get your information out there and promote it. So like what advice do you have for realtors, brokers that are looking to grow their business? And, again, you went through like 4 or 5 steps: engage and manifest, building value, those things. So let's get back to those and talk a little bit. There were 5 things, a little bit more detail about those things.
Well, let me dive into each of the 5 then and see how they apply. Let's just kind of follow the recipe. The first I mentioned was engage and manifest. Whenever I start working with an individual as they run their business, I want to understand what makes them tick. Why did they start the company? What are they trying to accomplish? And where do they see this going? And that engage and manifest conversation oftentimes is the first time they've ever had these things verbally communicated. What I mean by that is in their heads, they've probably had these conversations numerous times as to why am I doing this? What's going on? What am I trying to achieve? But rarely has it been with a spouse, a friend, a colleague communicated. And so I'm asking questions that they are articulating, that they haven't expressed. And it really gets down to that Simon Sinek idea of the why. Why are you doing this? And what is it that your customers are benefiting from? What's your unique selling proposition, your competitive advantage? How are you wowing your customers in the sense of over delivering? Why are they paying you for your services in the sense that they could go to someone else? What is it that's unique about what you're providing for the fees you charge? All those things are really getting to who they are and what they feel makes them unique in the marketplace. And as they start to express these things, what I'm ultimately trying to figure out is 2 things. One, when things get tough, why do you keep going? When you have to put your family on the line, do a second mortgage, take out a business loan. I mean, when you don't take a paycheck and pay your vendors and pay your employees, but yet you go without, and you have to go back to your spouse and explain that this month I haven't cashed the check just yet. There wasn't a deposit. How do you work through those tough times? And that's what I'm trying to get to, is what makes them tick and where do they tap into for that extra energy when times get hard? Because sooner or later in our working relationship as a business coach, there will be those moments, whether it's HR related with employee, it's client related, something's going to go sideways. And I want to know when that happens, what do you kind of tuck into and grab and hold on to? And so that's the engage and manifest. And that really is a key component of getting to know my client as I begin that interaction. So that's step 1. Any questions about that?
No, honestly, I'm sitting here like, hey, you want to do a case study? Let's do one right now. Or not a case study, but yeah.
Let's have a session.
Yeah, have a session. Let's go.
There you go. All right. Let's go to number 2 then. Yeah. Understanding accounting. This is fascinating to me because obviously I'm going to basically go into something here that I find very exciting, but too often business owners are like, okay, I've got the numbers, but whatever. So I'm going to slide across the table to them a profit and loss statement. And I'm going to say, when you pick up this report, however often you get it, what do you look at? What matters to you? And in that conversation, I'm just intrigued. I'm paying attention. What number do they want to see? Some people are going into a variety of the lines and saying, this one matters to me. This one does. Others just say, I just look at the bottom and see if it's positive. Great. That's a telltale sign for me to know what is it that matters today about this business. I do the same thing with the balance sheet. It's not uncommon to have the business owner just kind of slide them back and say, honestly, I don't know what any of this means. I just run my business. I do it well, and I hope that there's money in the bank. That's fine. Great. But I'm still going to push those reports across the table and ask what matters to you. The next part is then the education. We're going to go through and we're going to identify what of these numbers matter. What do they mean to one another? How are they correlated? And really, what are they telling about the business story, the month to month, the year to year that's going on in the business? But here's where I really dive in, and it's outside of the accounting. It's the idea that we're going to now tackle what are called key performance indicators, KPIs. We're going to identify what metric in the business do you watch that is a telltale indicator of whether or not the financials are going to be positive when we run those. Because every business has what's called leading and lagging indicators. The leading and lagging indicators are those precursors to the financials. And if we can watch as managers, as owners, these particular numbers and get excited about those, everything else will fall into place. And so I'm very much an advocate of what's called dashboarding. Every employee in the company, every department should have a very specific number for which they're accountable. And those numbers should be visual. They should be communicated to the team. Everyone should have accountability because everyone knows what everyone else is supposed to be doing. And as we do that, we get really good at the numbers, and the numbers become things that the business owner gets excited about. They want to look at, and it's not just logging into their bank account and seeing if there's money in the bank. It's so much more.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's huge. We did the same thing. We called it the money ball. Like everybody has a money ball. And if you're not hitting your numbers, and then we had meetings every day. It's like a quick stand up that helps people just stay accountable to their numbers.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's huge. That's big. All right. So we have engage and manifest, and then understanding the accounting side of it. And then what else?
That's right. Third is increasing revenue. This is fun. I want to understand the business model, and I'm going to say, okay, how do you make money? No, tell me, how do you make money? What are you doing in this business that people are paying you for? And I want to understand why they pay you. And when we get into this, I'm going to get into marketing and advertising. I'm going to get into sales. I want to understand what that cycle looks like. What is the cost per acquisition, your cost per lead? I want to understand what you're investing in from an advertising point of view to know, is there an ROI to that advertising? If we spent more, can we expect more? And as we get into the business model, this is where a lot of the business owners first get excited. Of the 5 things I mentioned, this is the first one that they really know and they really like to talk about. But there's a distinction between marketing and sales, and we dive into what the distinction is between the two. How are they correlated? What's the process? I want to know what their time is from first meeting a potential customer to selling, and that life cycle. I want to know what that timeline is. If you buy something, how long does it take for you to produce and sell it? And all those things come into play because we want to understand how the business is making money. And then once that's known, we can then say, okay, well, here we know that this marketing is a number that if we increase it, it just naturally has a closing rate of this. Well, we can increase it and see more sales here. That's where the business owner starts to get fun, because this is stuff that they're really familiar with and they like to manipulate. So that's where I want to next go.
Yeah. And all the different ways. So can you think of a time or business that you have worked with where once you go through this process, you have shown them either how they can shorten that sales cycle or how they can decrease the cost, like something interesting that you worked on that you can just touch on briefly? Give us
You bet. So there is an analysis that goes on. What we're going to do is, this is probably the first time, and it's not always, but probably is the first time that somebody has questioned their marketing to begin with. Why are you spending money here? Why are you in the yellow pages? I mean, who's in the yellow pages? Doesn't even exist anymore. There's sometimes just expenses that are going on in the business that really no longer are applicable. There is no associated ROI. And so they need to be able to explain why they do that task, that effort, that process. Why do they go to this meeting, this conference? All of a sudden, they're starting to explain why they're spending their time and money in certain areas. The next is the sales cycle. What are you doing along the way to nurture these contacts that you have? And it's basically for 2 reasons. You're going to be nurturing them with the intent of having them see you as the expert. So how are you positioning you to be the solution to whatever situation they're looking at, whether it be eliminating a pain or taking advantage of an opportunity? The second part of that, being an expert, is that now educating your potential customer as to why your process works. It's educating them as to why they should be doing business with you. And there's a way to shorten that cycle. There's a way to enhance that cycle. And so, like, I've written books. You can put into that a process of having a book written, and now you're the authority figure. It's putting on a podcast like you and I both do that elevate us to being that expert. So there are a variety of things that you can do to add to that sales cycle that enhance that experience of your potential customer to seeing you as the solution and being willing to pay you the money that you're asking for. And if anything we can do to increase the closing rate or decrease the closing cycle is what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Like it's phenomenal once you start looking at those and you look at your conversion rates and percentages. You just change a few percentages along the way, how much you can increase your sales.
Yes. Exponentially. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. So, okay. So you got increase the rev. What's after that?
Improve profit. Improving profit is basically making it intentional and deliberate. And this is where it really comes to a head. And here's why. Many a times when I meet with these business owners publicly, they're doing great. Revenue is high. Things are great. Business is booming. Everyone's busy. Okay. Get them into a room, have some confidence and create a safe environment, and they start to divulge, I'm making less money than I did last year. We're making twice as much revenue. I'm taking home half as much. There's a lot of expenses in the middle that are eating this up. And so what we're starting to do is have a real conversation about what are we in business for, and are we making money? Because technically you can grow a business so quickly that with payroll expenses and capital outlays, you can really eat up a lot of that revenue. And and no longer is the profit there as you're in a growth mode. And so what we're trying to do is balance these types of things so that the business owner can have a strategy to retain what they want and have what they expect and live a lifestyle that they're hoping for. And so what we try to do is, just because you're earning as a business or as an individual W-2 or whatever, a certain level of money, are you keeping it and are you using it? And so this is where both myself as a profit and growth expert and maybe a CFP come in and ensure that you're, as a business and as an individual, living within your means and taking home a profit.
Yeah. All right. I like that. So improving the profit. When you first said that, I was like, making it the type of profit you want. You're improving it. Yeah. It's okay. I got it.
Well, the thing is there's efficiencies. All of us have ways that we can improve our processes, our systems, and there are costs that we may be incurring that honestly we shouldn't do anymore. And so if you can just kind of eliminate expenses, you can increase your profit margin and now take more money home.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Okay. So that's good advice. And then last one was building value, correct?
Yeah, building value. And this is perhaps one of the least sexy, but perhaps most important components of this. And it's having the business owner have the realization that what they're building is an asset. It's a company that has value that at the end of the day, they honestly could be selling. And so often business owners don't understand how to evaluate that asset and determine its real valuation or worth. And so what we're doing is we're trying to help the business owner realize that what they're doing isn't a job. It's not just a lifestyle. They're building an entity that has worth, and whether it's generational, whether it's something that you're going to sell to the employees or sell to someone else, it's actually understanding what are the elements that define the worth of the company. And if somebody from the outside was looking in, how would they determine what that is worth to someone else outside and what they'd be willing to pay for it? And so at the end of the day, it's exit strategy. How are you going to leave this? What is the game plan? What's the worth that you're working towards? And we're going to reverse engineer it. If you want a business that's a certain multiple, a certain business size, we're going to now figure out how does that actually need to be kind of organized, created, what components need to be in place. And then all of a sudden it's like building a house. Do I need a pool? Don't I need a pool? It's staging the home. It's literally going in and putting in those things that appeal to someone outside of the building. And if we can build that using comps and everything else, all of a sudden we're in a position now where we're building a business that everyone else wants. It's sexy to someone else as well. And I get to live in it for the time being.
All right. So then workshop this with me, because this is my business was, we built up a wholesale, like fix and flip style business. Right. And, agents were in there, had an acquisitions team, had disposition team, had lead management. We had all this, right? The whole system was built out. Everything was process mapped. We had it, all ready to go. I never felt that business was sellable. All right.
Okay.
Mainly because getting into wholesale, the barrier to entry to getting into wholesale is very, very low. You are churning properties constantly. So like from a process point of view, perhaps you could sell this thing. But if I were to sell that and remove myself from it, I feel like which this is what happened. It just kind of falls apart. So knowing that, how can real estate professionals build value in the brand more so than like a book of business? Because the way I started looking at it is I need a property management company that's a book of business. That is a sellable asset that I can then sell because I have this whole management company that is running all of these properties. So then if it was just the brokerage, how do you build a sellable brokerage that can last?
All right. So I'm not in your space, but I'm going to try and do it real quickly because honestly, just to put this into perspective, my job isn't to have all the answers. My job is actually to have all the right questions. That's the definition of a good business coach, because I respect the fact that you're the expert, but let's do this anyways for the sake of your listeners. Property management company. I did have a client that was a property management company, so I'm familiar with this. Obviously, one of the things that they wanted to do is own properties that they were renting and also have other owners have them manage their properties. That was the essence of that business model. And so they wanted to have, at that time, they were working towards having 300 properties that they had of their own or of someone else's that they were managing. And as they got to that 300 threshold, a lot was going on. So what makes that business valuable that somebody else would want to buy it? Well, first of all, you've got your book of business, that thing that's actually making the money, the golden goose. Well, if you Randall, happen to be the one that's interacting with all the owners of the properties, and you're working with all the tenants. Granted, because you're the face of the business, to extract you out of the company, there's a problem, because the fear is that the tenants are going to leave and that the owners who have you managing the properties are going to leave because they work with Randall. What we need to do is create a process that this goose is willing to lay the golden eggs for someone else in the organization. You're no longer the one who has to feed and take care of this golden goose. So what we're going to implement in here are, first of all, important key employees. We're going to have employees and managers that come into the organization that manage all of this in your absence, so that you can go on vacation, you can step away, and the tenants in the end don't know you. The owners of the properties don't know you. They're interacting with some key individuals other than you in the organization. Likewise, you have processes in place. It's ways in which you're going out and screening potential tenants, and that screening process ensures that you get quality tenants. You've got things that you're doing to look at the properties and make sure that they're being taken care of on a monthly or quarterly basis, where you're driving by and making sure that the landscaping is being done. You're doing random visits where you're going in and ensuring that the property inside is still being taken care of, that there's no issues. And in the event that there are issues, such as the water heater, the roof, and so forth, you're able to quickly, with a handyman of some sorts, internally or externally, take care of those needs. Well, what you've created now is of value, because it's a business that has processes with key employees, with a goose that's laying golden eggs, that if I'm an investor, I recognize that Randall isn't the thing holding it all together anymore. I realize that Randall is someone that's created a team and have processes that keeps this golden goose alive. I want that goose. I'm going to pay for that goose, because I know that everything built around this entity keeps that goose producing, and I want it. So that's where the multiple comes in, and I'm willing to come pay you for what you've created, and you can move on, because these people, key employees, key people, the processes ensure that the goose is going to continue to live and produce accordingly.
Did you guys structure that in a way that it was sellable? Did you guys actually see that through?
So no, they've not sold it. Basically, they're still running, though. They're very profitable. They have over 300 properties now, and they've got key employees, and they're doing happy.
So something like that, what does that trade on? Is it a multiple of EBITDA? What is it? Was it?
So there's various ways to determine a valuation of a business. There's about 4 that are traditional. One of it is based on assets. You look at the balance sheet and see what the company actually owns. It's hard assets. One of them is EBITDA. And so it depends on how you want to issue that valuation. But I'm going to answer your question by saying it's in the eye of the beholder. Whoever wants to buy the company kind of gets to determine how they're willing to pay for it and what your out is. You know, are you going to be able to exit within 6 months, the day of the sale, 2 years? What type of commitment are you going to make to stay on board to kind of ensure that the valuation of the business is retained and that they're happy with that transaction? It's like anything, the value is truly in the end basically based on the buyer, but multiples, no, I'm not familiar in the property management world what that multiple typically is.
Yeah, I didn't know if there was like some standard. This is, a business.
It varies industry to industry. Yeah. You can look at comps and see what comps have been. That's where you get a business broker in place, and the business broker can kind of give you an idea of what's happening in the marketplace. Awesome.
Well, Roger, I think that's we covered quite a bit. And do you have anything else you want to cover? We can edit this part out.
No, I think this has been a wonderful conversation. Yeah. I enjoyed it. One of the things that I think everybody that's in this entrepreneurial mindset just realizes is that money at the end of the day is the name of the game. And the more we can make and the more we can keep is what we're trying to all do. And so if you can recognize that accounting is a key component of that, I think you'll appreciate more of the accounting professionals you work with. And I hope from the conversation today, you see the purpose of why you should work with them. And I'm hoping that as you interact with accounting professionals, you can more confidently ask them questions as to what the role is and what you expect. And if at the end of the day you want it, this is for business owners. Get a copy of your book. It's right now available for free as an ebook. You can go to Universal Accounting, and in the universalaccounting.com in the free resource section, find a copy of that ebook. And I would encourage you to download it, read it, and get that perspective so you can talk more intelligently to your accounting professional.
Yeah, very nice. All right, we'll put a copy or a link to that in the show notes as well. Roger, again, appreciate you jumping on, sharing your knowledge. It's been very helpful for me personally, and I'm sure with all of my listeners as well. So appreciate it, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode.
Thank you, Randall. Take care. Have a great day, and always remember this: if it's about accounting, it is universal.
Did you know that 80% of the agents we speak with got into real estate
in order to gain passive income so they could obtain financial freedom and become work optional. If you want to stay up to date, the best way is to make sure you're subscribed. So if you haven't done that, go ahead and do it now. We'll catch you on the next episode.